The race to replace Dianne Feinstein is already heating up. Today on Political Excess, we're going to take a look at this California Senate election. So what have we got so far? Well, we've got Dianne Feinstein, who is yet to declare her intention to run for re-election. Here on the Wikipedia page, she has publicly expressed interest, but that doesn't mean a whole lot. And she's been in office since 1992. She's currently 89 years old. She would be 91 at the time of the 2024 election if she were to run again. And she's pretty much an establishment favorite, but over the last few years, there's been some concerns about mental decline. So I'm not going to go into all that, but we've got some declared candidates that have already jumped into this race. We've got Katie Porter and Adam Schiff. Now, before we get into the candidates, first of all, let's take a second to discuss the voting system in California. They have the jungle primary with the top two candidates regardless of political party advancing to the general election. You might remember 2018, it was two Democrats, it was Dianne Feinstein, Kevin De Leon, and no Republican was in the general election. So going into 2024, this is generally considered a safe seat for the Democrats, but theoretically, if there's enough Democrats running and they do split the vote, and there are two Republican candidates that get enough voting percentage to claim the top two spots, then a Republican could become a U.S. Senator in California. Now, that scenario is very unlikely, especially this far out. People come up with all kinds of crazy scenarios. I don't think it would happen. Republicans know there's almost no chance to pick this seat up in California. So it's a weird voting system. I'm not a big fan of it, but it is what it is. And what have we got so far? Well, we've got Katie Porter. She was the first to announce. Now, Porter is regarded as more progressive. She represents a district from the Orange County area. I've heard her talked about as a rising star. The only thing I would say against that is, in the recent midterms, she only won re-election by about 3 points. That was closer than I expected. I thought she would have won by over 5. So she jumped into the race, and then there was some media backlash about how she's being disrespectful to Dianne Feinstein because Feinstein currently holds the seat and she hasn't declared what she's going to do yet. So Porter should not have announced her candidacy. Outside of the liberal establishment media bubble, anybody would say that makes no sense. Feinstein appears to mentally have declined, but even if she hasn't, this is what happens in elections. Sometimes people want to try to win that seat. And even if you're an incumbent, it doesn't mean that nobody should be able to challenge you. So Porter is in the race. She does have more of a populist kind of feel, where she goes after big business and more economics. I don't know how big she is on the identity politics stuff and related far-left social justice policies. As I always say, if Democrats go strong on populist economics, they will have success. But there's already been smears here against Porter. Here's a Fox News article that talks about she's had some allegations of racism and a toxic workplace environment. You can take a look at that here if you'd like. I will say I'm not a big fan of trying to smear somebody from something they did in their past. I'm more focused on what their vision is for the future, but obviously that doesn't mean if there's something so extreme from their past, especially if it was only from a couple of years ago, it's worth looking into, but a lot of times the smears get all the attention and your image is tainted, even if it's not true or minimally true. So she's going to face these criticisms. Now we also have Adam Schiff, who's declared his candidacy. And Schiff is from a much more Democratic district in the Los Angeles area. He's been in office a while, since 2001, and he pretty much made a name for himself going after Donald Trump. Then there's all kinds of criticisms about Schiff, where he is very cozy with the establishment, and he's more into grandstanding. And that's probably true, but I will say I think one of Schiff's biggest negatives is his personality. I think he is completely devoid of any charisma. He does come off as very robotic and cold to me. And I think if he were a Republican, a lot of the late-night comedians, they would really be going after this guy. They would capture his general persona and his mannerisms, and he would be a fun guy to satirize. But because he's a Democrat going after Trump, we don't really get much of that. But regardless, he's in the race, and of these two candidates, to me it seems like Katie Porter is definitely the stronger candidate. She just seems more electable to me. So there's plenty of articles about both of these candidates. Here's another one that talks about how it's going to be an expensive, ugly fight for the Senate seat, and I think that's pretty much a guarantee. We also still don't even know if Dianne Feinstein is actually going to try to run again. That to me would be hilarious if she actually declared her intent to run for another term. Even if she did, I think it would be a big battle, but that's when you'd see the real fireworks, and that's the outcome I would be most interested in seeing. Now, if we go back and take a look at the other potential candidates, we have Barbara Lee. She has an announcement pending. She's been in the U.S. House since 1998. So I've got an article from Politico here that says that she's running for the Senate. And regardless of what you think of Barbara Lee, to me the notable thing about her is she's already 76 years old. She would be 78 at the time of the election. If you're looking to go in a younger direction than the borderline 90-year-old Dianne Feinstein, to me Barbara Lee is not it at all. Late 80s to late 70s. I'd think that's something most voters are not going to be too excited about. Granted, it can happen. Peter Welch just won his first term in Vermont for the U.S. Senate, and he's barely younger than Barbara Lee. But to me, I think that's going to be an issue, and we'll see what ends up happening. Now, there's also this related article here from a couple of years ago where Gavin Newsom says he will name a black woman to the U.S. Senate if Feinstein resigns. Now, I want to touch on this, but I don't want to go too far into it. But to me, there will be a lot of this going on in the Democratic primary, where your identity becomes the most important thing about you, and your views and your voting record and your vision, that becomes secondary. And this is also the thing I frequently bring up that is a complete weakness for the Democrats. This open and shameless advocacy for people based purely on their identity, usually gender, usually skin color, sometimes sexual identity or religion. It's extremely off-putting. I think it's unethical, and I would also argue that it's not even legal. Joe Biden did it with his Supreme Court nominee. I didn't see Trump do it when he nominated Amy Coney Barrett. He said it's going to be a woman. We're never going to get anywhere if this is all we're going to do is put people's identities on the forefront and act like it's the identity that is winning this seat and not the person and what they stand for. There's only 2 seats per state, so you can't have everybody represented. And even so, can we focus on their viewpoints? Can that be the primary thing we talk about? Because I'm tired of hearing about somebody's color and somebody's genitals whenever it comes to a political appointment or significant election. If you want to go down that road, you could also say that both of these U.S. Senate seats in California have been held by women since the early 90s, so maybe it's time to get a man in there. You could say that, and that would be true, but it wouldn't matter. It really only matters what the reviews are, and when Newsom or anybody says anything like this so out in the open, I think it's very despicable. And moreover, if this is all amongst the Democrats, and let's say they generally agree on 95% of the issues, and you know the seat is going to be won by a Democrat, isn't that good enough? Because these people that are into identity politics, you know that if it was a Republican that fit the identity politics they were looking for, they would completely change their tune, and they would make it all about the views at that point. So how about we just keep it at the views the entire time? So anyway, back to the other candidates. We've also got Khanna. He's publicly expressed interest. He's regarded as more progressive. He might jump into this race, and it will quickly become a crowded field. Now, we've also got a bunch of other potential candidates on this list, but they're all Democrats. Now, on the Republican side, there's really not much going on yet. As I said, they probably feel like they don't stand a chance. So we'll see if anything develops on that side. Now, we've got a couple of endorsements here already. They're for Katie Porter. It's from Elizabeth Warren and the Progressive Change Campaign Committee. And there's actually one poll down here from back in November. Shows Katie Porter at 37%, Adam Schiff at 26%, 37% undecided. So that pretty much sums up where this Senate election is at as of now. It's fun to see a nice battle in a primary and in a general election, but at the same time, if it's all going to be about identity politics, then I'm completely uninterested. But we'll see where the battle of ideas leads. As of now, I would think Katie Porter would be the favorite. It's very early on. A ton can happen. But let me know in the comments, what do you think about this Senate election? What do you think about any of these candidates on the Democratic side? And do you think a Republican could possibly squeak in if the stars align? And are you also so burnt out and tired of hearing about all the identity politics when it comes to these Senate elections? Let me know down below, and on your way out, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.